Welcome to Crossroads Podcast.
Today we're going to be talking with Joy Clarke, who is a FGM Specialist Midwife, and she set up the Whittington Hospital FGM clinic. And she is also now providing training to health and social care professionals and other community leaders.
Before starting, I would like to mention some trigger warnings that may include domestic abuse, gender-based violence, and female genital mutilation.
Hello, well, I'm Maria, the co-president of the Intersectional Feminist Society at King's College London. And today we will be talking with Joy Clarke, an FGM specialist midwife who set up the FGM clinic in the Whittington Hospital NHS Trust to support survivors of FGM and who delivers training about FGM to health and social care professionals and other frontline professionals, including community members. The Africa Advocacy Foundation is a community-led initiative that aims to equip diaspora communities and marginalized people with the tools they need to find better health, safety, prosperity, and opportunity to lead fulfilling and happy lives. It also works with communities both in the UK and overseas who are affected by a range of issues, including sexual and reproductive health, violence against women and girls, including female genital mutilation, FGM, and mental health issues. I am here with Melanie, a KSIL graduate who works as an advocate and researcher for women that have experienced domestic abuse.
Perfect. So are you happy to tell us a bit about yourself and kind of work and journey into doing kind of FGM related work?
Yes, I'm happy to. My name is Joy Clarke. I'm an FGM specialist midwife. I established the FGM clinic, as was mentioned, at Whittington Hospital in June 2000. My aim was to improve the birth outcomes for pregnant women who are affected by FGM. FGM is a term we use here in the UK, but I've learned over years, some of the survivors prefer us to use other terms. For example, female circumcision, female cutting or surgery down below. And for the survivors from Sierra Leone, the term they use is initiation. So depending on the community that the acute hospitals serve, I think it's good practice as frontline professionals, and I mean within health and social care, that we should learn to know about the culture, about the people we meet, so that when we come in contact with them, we are not judgmental, the things that are used, especially with vulnerable people and women and girls. We as part of society are always seen, well, women, I should say, as the lesser person and cannot contribute to everything else that men do. But personally, I know we can, and providing we've been given the opportunities to do so, regardless of race, religion, culture, ethnic origin, etc., we can excel to the same extent. And it was one of the things that pushed me, because I wanted not only to improve the lives of women and girls who have survived actually FGM, because I'm sure you know that many women and girls die as a result of FGM, not only at the time when the procedure is carried out, but sometimes later in life because of the complications of childbirth, infections, and other things that happen. So that's where I'm at. I was so pleased when the managers at the Whittington Hospital accepted and supported me in establishing that clinic. I no longer work at the Whittington because I've retired from that and I'm working freelance now. And as I've said to Melanie, I am still doing most of the work I used to do at the Whittington, except the surgical intervention that I did, especially for women with type 3 FGM. As you may know, there are 4 types of FGM. Type 1 involves where the clitoris is partially or totally removed. Type 2 would involve the clitoris and the labia minora or small lips. That can be cut and removed. Type 3 is where the labia majora is cut. It's narrowed, yes, and it's, do you know how it works? It's narrowed and it's stitched together, leaving a very small opening for women's menstrual flow and for them to pass urine. And with type 3 FGM or infibulation, that's when women require to be deinfibulated. That's the correct term. Women may say they would like a reversal and it's fine, but the correct term is the deinfibulation. And the specialist person who is dealing with the woman should explain the reason why we don't use the term reversal, because if parts of the genitalia has been removed and got rid of, it cannot be put back. So it's for the woman to have the right understanding, woman or young person, why we use the term deinfibulation rather than reversal, because we cannot reverse surgically any part of the genitalia that's been removed. Yes?
Thank you so much. We also wanted to ask, why would you say that FGM is such an important topic for you?
FGM is an important topic for me because of the harm it causes to women and girls. It's not only about the physical harm, but let's think of the psychological and mental harm that it causes. And it lasts a lifetime, regardless of the type of FGM a survivor would have had. It lasts a lifetime. And just think, the genital area is a very sensitive part. Parts would be cut and it will remain sensitive for the rest of a woman or girl's life. And if you could imagine, at some point, that girl that's been cut between the age of 5 and 15 will grow up. Puberty would start, and that's the time when most of the complications will start. Because of the difficulty passing urine, infections, painful periods. These are all the things that present and manifest itself in a young girl's life. From puberty, she becomes a woman. Now, this young person will marry, because most of the women will marry. And you may not know, because of the damage that's been done to the genitalia, it will cause problems in the bedroom during intimacy. And unless women and girls have been given the help that they require, because all women and girls should, when they access services in relation to FGM, should be offered counseling. It's important.
Definitely.
And you know why counseling is important to any woman, regardless of any type of violence that they would have had or experienced. FGM is one of them. And counseling would offer them a safe space for them to be able to talk about the harm that they've endured for so many years earlier. And we as professionals, and I'm thinking as myself, When I am with a woman during a consultation, I've got to give her space. It has to be a safe space. She must be given time and listened to.
Yes,
Body
definitely.
language is important
Yeah.
because when she's disclosing her information, it's important that I listen. Do not judge her,
And you use,
because it would be the first time in all the years that she's had that procedure carried out that she may be talking about it. And from doing it that way, if we give her the space, she may experience flashbacks. She may think of the person who actually did the cutting. She may sweat, apportion blame to the cutter, or perhaps her mother or the person in the extended family that actually performed the procedure. So it's a lot for a woman or a young person to talk about in one go, which from my experience, many times one consultation is not enough, because we've got to give the survivor time to take in as much information as she can, then stop the consultation and explain why we've stopped, giving her another appointment to come back and talk about what she understood has taken place, and we can further talk to her about options that might be available, to give her the choices and explain why those choices are given. FGM is a very complex subject, and unless we can give women and girls the time and space to talk, do not judge them, listen. It's their space. We are trying to learn from them in order to be able to safeguard them from future harm and extended family members. Because with FGM, it's linked to other types of violence against women and girls. It's not always a one problem in relation to the harm that's caused. Girls who've experienced FGM may also experience forced marriage and honor-based violence or abuse, as it's called. So we're talking here, it's a very complex situation. That is why working in collaboration with multi-professional and multi-agencies would help us to bring together one perspective in terms of guidelines and procedures, because we can only work together to safeguard girls and women, if we do it in collaboration. Because we know what each agency is doing, how we can overcome any barriers, because at the end of the day, we're working for the best outcome for women and girls.
Yeah, definitely. I think that collaboration is definitely really important when it comes to supporting survivors. And I was just wondering, with the FGM clinics, do they offer the one-to-one counselling, or do you work with a different agency to provide that, and then you do the initial kind of support, if that makes sense?
Some clinics offer a one-to-one counselling, and it may be for a period of time. It depends on where the survivor was and where she wants to get to in terms of feeling a better person, of knowing and contributing, actually, because a lot of survivors contribute to the work we're doing, because it's survivors, from the way they've been treated, and if they feel that they can contribute and help us as professionals, they would refer their friends, family members, and so on. And that's how we know things are getting better. excuse me, because of the survivors that want to work, and have, in fact, some of them have set up their own organizations to help young people who are affected by FGM. There's a lot of work going on. And you've heard about Integrate UK?
I have you.
There used to be called Integrate Bristol, but now it's called Integrate UK.
Yeah.
It's a group of young people who live in Bristol that are doing a lot of work around FGM. So that's something you must look up, and perhaps find out if you can perhaps have an interview with some of the young survivors, listening to their own stories, where they're at, and how much they're helping to bring FGM at the top of the agenda, because if it falls off, just think of what would be happening to women and girls. So we're all working to keep it at the top of the agenda. We don't want to lose sight of what we should be doing in order to help women and girls.
Yeah, definitely. And could you tell us like a bit more about your work as, I know you've touched on it a little bit, but as when you were a FGM specialist midwife, and kind of like what kind of, so you mentioned defibrillation, what other kind of procedures and things like that you would carry out, and
Okay, well, I've mentioned defibrillation, which is specifically for women who would have had type 3 FGM or infibulation. The other term for type 3 is infibulation. And defibrillation is a surgical procedure. And women are given choices. This procedure can be done between the 22nd and 34th week of pregnancy. And the reason why we do it at that stage, or prefer for it to be done in pregnancy, it gives the woman, when she goes into labor, time to focus on her birthing experience rather than being cut or defibrillated during labor. Having said that, there's a small percentage of women that will opt for having it done in labor, and that's fine. But as a professional, we have to offer options to women and explain why the options are offered. And we must also bear in mind a lot of women who may have changed their minds, because many would say, yes, we will go for the procedure once you've arranged it and so on, but then they'll call and say, we've changed our mind. It's fine for them to change their mind. It's their body. They know what to expect. And if they want to have the defibrillation procedure during the birthing experience, that's fine. But defibrillation is a surgical procedure that's carried out generally under local anesthetic. But if the woman prefers to have a spinal anesthetic, she can have it. But all the defibrillations that I've done was carried out under local anesthetic. And it's opening of the existing scar tissue seen on a woman with type 3 FGM. And we would give a local anesthetic, cut into the scar tissue until we can see the urethral meatus. Do you know what that is? The urethral meatus is the little tiny hole that we pass urine, that our urine comes from. And once that has been visualized, we oversew the edges so that the woman's vagina would become normal. And it's important that we know why women have vaginas. It's so that they can have penetrative intercourse. It's so that they can give birth vaginally in most cases. They can also have smear tests. So that was something when we ask women during perhaps a workshop that we would done for health. And it's best when talking about FGM, just to arrange coffee mornings for women. That's how I did it. And we'll talk about general health. So the things that affect us as a race and some communities, it's vitamin D that you know about. And if we start from the top and work our way down, eventually we will get to the vulva, vitamin D, breast examination, smear test. Why haven't you been for your smear test? Because I'm closed down below. So you'll ask the woman, why are you closed? And she will say she's had the FGM or cutting or circumcision, whatever. Yeah. And if she discloses that, that's the time when we need to talk to her separately at the end of the session to find out how best we can help her. In health and in maternity specifically, women are asked the FGM question. Have you been cut down below? Does anyone intend to cut you or your daughters? Yeah. Family members' view about FGM, because that's important. And why we want to know family members' view about FGM, we would have educated the woman or the mother, but it doesn't mean her mother or mother-in-law has had exposure to have an awareness of the implications and consequences of cutting girls. And that is why we want to know family members' view, because if it is that the senior member in the family thinks that they should carry on the tradition of cutting girls, there's a problem in the family. And that's when we'll need to have a meeting to talk to the whole family about why girls should not be cut, why they should be protected, etc.
Yeah. And what challenges and highlights would you talk to us about in this type of work that you're doing? Is there any particular challenges or highlights that come to your mind?
Challenges with everything we do, there are challenges. And if a woman is living in an extended family, she wants help because she knows the senior family members, their view is that the girl should be cut. And unless the woman protects her daughter in her absence, the family member may do it. I'm not saying they will. It's likely that they will do it. So unless we can educate those family members as to the law, we have a law in this country in which there's 14 years imprisonment if a girl has been cut, and the family members know very well it's illegal to do so, and you've done it. You know that we've had a law in this country since 1985. We've only had one conviction, and that was in 2019, where a young child was taken, 3-year-old, to a hospital in East London bleeding. And her mother's story was that she was outside, she came in, climbed up to get biscuits from a cupboard, and she fell and sustained an injury, clean cut on her genitalia. That case went to court. I can't tell you much more of it, but the mother was found guilty and sentenced to 11 years imprisonment.
Oh, wow.
Another 2 years was added to the sentence because pornographic material was found on her computer. This is something you can read up about. Just look up for conviction of FGM and what, So if you think, Maria and Melanie, we've only had one conviction. Had that child not bled and had to be taken to a hospital, to seek help from a clinician, let us think there may be a few more girls who have been cut, and because everything went well, they did not bleed, etc., we are still unaware. A 3-year-old, by the time she's 5 or 6, may forget everything that happened on that terrible day. How many girls are living with the consequences of FGM? And I can think about the UK that we are totally unaware of. Regardless of the type that's carried out, it causes pain. It causes bleeding. It causes emotional and psychological trauma. So it's not only physical, it's mental, it's sexual trauma.
And following what you've just been talking to us about, could you share with us a time where you supported a woman that experienced FGM with additional health complications to safety, and what this process looked like?
Well, in fact, this is going to take me back all the years earlier. And it was an incident that really pushed me to establish that clinic. And it was a woman from one of the practicing communities, did not speak English. And in those days, we didn't use interpreters, we used family members.
Right, okay,
She didn't speak English. She arrived in labor into the birthing unit, fully dilated. You know what that means when a woman is fully dilated? She's ready to give birth. She was completely closed, which means she had type 3 FGM. And the reason we knew that she was ready to give birth is because through the tiny vaginal opening, the hair of the baby, an inch of the hair protruded through that tiny hole. And that's how we suspected she was fully dilated. I had to press the emergency bell because I knew nothing about what's going on. Sure. The doctors came rushing in and they defibrillated that lady, and she had a safe birth. There was a lot of bleeding, a lot of chatter going on. The whole situation was compromised. We couldn't understand her, she couldn't understand us. So it was kind of sign body language, mopping her brow, trying to get her to feel that we are caring for her in the best way we can. But it was a situation I was not happy with, and I have not seen it repeated since. It's never been repeated since, because I ensured that there was always a plan in place for women after the consultation. A care plan was written on the labor page, we call it, so that any midwife who comes in and sees that woman, as she turns to the labor page, she would see the plan.
And know kind of what to do
for
how
delivering the baby.
Yes,
the plan, what needs to be done.
We now wanted to ask you if you could tell us about the FGM clinics within London and how you set up the clinic at Whittington Hospital. Like, what kind of support do they provide for survivors, and what impact did you see this have?
Right. The clinic, there are, as far as I know, 11 clinics, all run similarly. The Whittington Clinic, and there are another 2 or 3 clinics. Whittington Clinic was women-centered and midwifery-led. There are other clinics in London that are similar. But for Whittington, the clinic, we referred all of the women for counseling to the Dahlia Project. Have you heard of the Dahlia Project?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
It's a counseling project specifically for women with FGM. And of course, it's in the borough of Islington, where I worked.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's just up the road from the Whittington. And the Dahlia Project, they were intrinsic when I first set up the clinic. They were the first non-government organizations that wanted and actually arranged for community members in Islington and other boroughs to be educated about FGM. Yeah, the Manor Gardens advocacy, with the Dahlia Project, because the Dahlia Project is attached to the Manor Gardens advocacy, and they were set up in 2013.
Yeah.
Okay.
2013. And they've been going on from strength to strength. And as a result of the work they've been doing, NHS England has set up 2 other areas where the Dahlia Project psychotherapists meet women, counsel them, and give them the support they require. So I've always been working with the Manor Gardens advocacy, and my colleague, who is now at the Whittington, she also continues the same.
Following this that you just mentioned, what kind of impacts does inequalities within health have on survivors' well-being, and what work are you doing to reduce these inequalities within the health system?
Inequalities within the health system has always been there, and unless we've got healthcare professionals that know what the inequalities are and what they can do to reduce those systems. We know that Black and ethnic minority group women, and some of the reasons why there shouldn't be any reasons why there should be inequalities for them, but I think in some cases they're afraid to speak up to a doctor or a professional. They're afraid that if they do and query something that's happening within their health, they'll be treated badly. And that goes without saying. I mean, even me, I'm confident, and that has come over time with experience. But in my early days as a student, I would have been very timid to query something that was said or afraid to ask questions. But we've got to train the young people from birth onwards to be assertive. No question is a silly question, because if you knew the answer, you wouldn't ask it. And it's asking questions is a means of learning. That's why we ask those questions. We want to know more about it so we can use our knowledge and information to share with others. And if we share knowledge and skills, it's the key to not manage, but to reduce the inequalities that some women and girls face, and some ethnic minorities, if that's the right way of putting it. I don't want to be too dogmatic, if that's the right word to use, but inequalities are there, and inequalities will continue to be there. However, to a lesser extent, until we can train all professionals, whether in health and social care. We do the same training. They learn what inequalities mean. Talk to the people that are experiencing those inequalities. Have meetings with them. We want to know from you how we can better work towards you feeling better, work towards you accessing services, who you can contact, who we can steer you to help you with your needs, because there are lots of things with inequalities.
Yeah.
And unless we can work together as frontline professionals, I'm going to talk about now health and social care, because we are in the front line, and we are the people that women and girls within health will see for the first time. So we've got to have the knowledge and know what we should do to reduce those inequalities that's happening with women and girls.
Yeah, definitely. That's so important. And I was just wondering if you could introduce to the audience what type of work the Africa Advocacy Foundation does more generally, and then also what you do more specifically for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Specifically for the African advocacy, I do training on FGM, and I've done training for Lambeth, Lewisham, and now I'm doing some training for Walsall Council, on FGM, but I do other training on forced marriage, domestic abuse, child abuse linked to faith and belief. So those are the trainings that I do.
Yeah. And I know with these trainings, I was just wondering if you could give us like, what kind of impact have you seen these different training programs that you've run have?
In terms of impact on how?
Impact on, I guess, like the outcomes that you've seen, or if there's been any changes following these trainings.
Yeah, we do have an evaluation after every training, and the evaluation has always been excellent. And because of those evaluations, they're requesting more and more training for, the other members that they work with within their teams, etc. And that's how we know that it's working. Because if it wasn't so, we would not be continuing with the training year after year.
Yeah, that's great.
It's the evaluation.
Yeah,
that's so important.
I also wanted to ask more specifically the benefits of one-to-one counseling and peer support group that the African Advocacy Foundation offers to individuals, more specifically.
Well, I know they do, they've got their own therapist that does their training, but I have never really sat in on one of their training to see how that it's done, which is different. I've in fact trained the psychotherapist at Manor Gardens about FGM, because if you're offering training, if you're offering therapy for survivors for whatever case, you need to know about actually the facts about whether it's FGM, forced marriage, child abuse linked to faith or belief, so that you can form a picture in order to as you listen during the counseling, because counseling involves a lot of listening, because the woman or young person will be telling their story from their perspective. And it's to listen and ask very few questions. You may make notes as a counselor, but in those notes, you're going to actually, during the counseling, or just go back to say, this is what you've said. Is it correct? And how do you feel that this could be made better for you from, the impact that whatever the abuse was, how it could change. So it's about listening and not talking, positive body language, facial gestures to let the person know you're understanding what they're saying and how you would want to help them to get to a better place. It's very important with counseling. It's about
Mhm.
listening, making
Definitely.
perhaps a
Yes.
little bit of notes, and revisiting some of the things that have been said by the survivor, I would say, by the survivor. And survivors like to be called survivors. Some people tend to call them victims. They're not victims. If they're there with us in a counseling session or for whatever the session, they have survived and they want to share that survival with others so that other survivors can help each other. That's how it works. We cannot be in silos and keep everything to ourselves. It's about talking and sharing our experiences over time that brings about change. And change can only come from the people who've actually been there and have experienced all the trauma, whether it's emotional, physical, psychological, coercion, whatever it may be. They are the people that will bring about change from their experiences over time.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really important around the terminology as well, with that between using the word survivors. I think I haven't touched on that yet. Yeah, it's just so important. And I know you mentioned a bit about the training that you provide to professionals within health and social care. I was just wondering, what are some of the key things that you try to get across in those trainings, do you think? Some of the key messages?
Some of the key things is awareness of where they are. It's a safe space because in some trainings, or in most trainings, I would say, remember, if we're talking about FGM, there'll be a survivor in that room. Yeah. So we've got to give them a warning. If there are any survivors, it's fine. Take time out if you feel that there are going to be any triggers. Most important. Just take time out. Most of the training I've been doing since COVID has been Zoom or through Teams, not face to face. When we can see people face to face, we can empathize with some of their emotions. We cannot do it to the same extent on Zoom or Teams platform. So we've always got to be mindful that they're survivors. There may be survivors in the room. And if it is so, and there are any words or part of the presentation that will trigger, please take time out. There's nothing wrong with that. Very, very important in training. And of course, during a training, it's for them to have the key words of the presentation. And with FGM, as I said before, it could be female circumcision, female cutting, female surgery initiation. They're key words. And some of those words may trigger flashbacks. Flashbacks and other emotional realization as to what would have happened. So those are things we talk about. Another thing, it's important, we working together to safeguard girls and women.
To ask the role that these agencies have in safeguarding women and girls, and how can we ensure that we effectively safeguard women and girls that have experienced FGM?
Well, to work effectively, we've got to be aware of what FGM is. Be aware of the community that you're working with, because every community is different. And within the same country, you may not be aware, and for the millions of people that would be residing in one country, they're different tribes, and different tribes will do the cutting at different stages of a girl's life. Some very young, some a lot older. So if we're going to safeguard, we've got to know within that community their beliefs and have some idea as to when their cutting would be carried out with the young person. We cannot bring about the change unless we know and hear it from them.
Yeah.
And that is why it's important to have those coffee mornings, because from the coffee mornings and talking about health in general, women know that we are trying to help them, not only for the violence against them that would happen at some point in their lives, but the holistic care that we're offering. Because if we're going to talk about vitamin D, how to examine your breast, smear tests, why it's important, to have them, and talk about also about FGM, we are there. We are giving them a lot of information in one go, in one coffee morning, and they will disclose, and it's those same women that will get other women involved and ask or request to have another coffee morning because they need to bring their friends to listen to the things and the areas and issues that affects them all that we'll be talking about. It's the women that do that for themselves and invite us to take part.
Thank you. And finally, I just wanted to ask, what does intersectionality mean to you?
I didn't see that question until the last thing. You wouldn't believe it. This morning, I was going through the paperwork and I thought, oh my God. Well, I tell you what, I made a little, I jot down words that I think would be beneficial. And what I jot down is, I thought about it's unique. It's about marginalization of people. It's about social norms. Excuse me. It's about gender, race, class, sexual orientation, I've written down, oppression, discrimination. Those are the words. And of course, all those lead to one word, being disadvantaged. That's what I think. It's about being disadvantaged. And I also looked up, because I didn't realize that it was first coined by Kimberly Grenson, in 1989. I didn't know that. I thought it was something that just happened maybe 10 years ago. And that just goes to show my knowledge of it. It's only about 10, 12 years ago that I've actually seen and come up with the word and thought, oh, what is that about? But I realized it affects us all. And it's most to do with feminism and women. It's about, and even within feminism, I think some women choose the bits that suits them. So they pick out the part that they're happy with. But what is true feminism? How can we work together to be singing from the right page? Because unless we can see everyone, this world is for all of us, regardless of race, culture, ethnic origin, sexual orientation. We have got to like the people in the world and don't think of ourselves as being different. We've got to encourage. Each of us have to choose for ourselves, whether we want to be known as he, she, whatever the case. And you've got to tell me, what would you want me to call you? I wouldn't call you something unless I'm sure about it. And if I'm not sure, you ask. You just don't assume. And until we can stop assuming and brush everyone with the same brush, we will not get there. We will not. Yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah,
Personally.
it's very inspirational to see how intersectionality can be applied to whatever your discipline is, whatever your cause that you're fighting is for. You always can apply intersectionality to the work that you do in whatever that
The work that we do, always,
exactly. Always, yes.
always. Don't separate it. We've got to accept ourselves, our friends, the people in the world.
Yes.
Whatever they choose, it is fine. As long as it's not causing harm, it's not causing harm. They're not cutting anyone. They choose to be who they want. And it's for us to accept. Don't abuse them verbally, physically, or for whatever reason. I've seen people attacked on the tube, and I thought I was going to collapse.
Yeah.
For what? His sexual orientation. You kicked him. His glass fell off of his face. I am hurt now. Hair's running down, but I can't help.
Yeah.
I can't help. And this is what we have got to acknowledge. Each man to his own order. He or she isn't asking you for anything. Let them go on their way and be happy. If you can help them, but don't abuse them. For whatever reason, don't abuse. That's how I see it.
Yeah, thank you so much for
definitely.
sharing
Thank you so much
with us your
Yeah,
work
super
and knowledge.
I hope
Yeah.
it was worth your while.
Yeah,
Of course,
definitely.
of course.
It was really, really interesting. Thank you.
We're so grateful to have you here.
Yeah, it
So
was amazing.
thank you very,
Thank
very
you
much.
so much.
It was a pleasure and good luck. And if you want to know anything more from me, please don't hesitate. You're in my phone diary now. So you're in my
Thank
diary.
you so much.
Thank you so much.
Such a pleasure. Really, really
Thank
lovely.
you so
And
much.
good luck with everything you do. You
Thank you.
deserve to do well.
Thank you.
Good luck. Good
Take
luck.
care. Bye
You're
bye.
very welcome.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you. All right. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
We want to thank Joy Clarke for her knowledge, her time, and all the information she shared with us about the work and advocacy she does against FGM.
And if you would like to see any more resources, just look below. We're going to put some things to do with the FGM clinics and other of Joy Clarke's work.
We also want to thank the listeners for sharing with us your time. And we hope both that you've enjoyed the series and the podcast overall. And if you wanna donate and help, there'll be also some links below, so you can support the creatives and the speakers, sharing their time with us and making Crossroads Podcast stay alive. Thank you so much.
Thank you.